This course is presented to you free of charge by TTJ Tech Services of www.ttjtech.biz and by Stir It Up of www.stiritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U, not an I, so that's STURITUP.com. TTJ Tech Services and Stir It Up are pleased to offer this course to you to the glory of God and to the benefit of all those who listen. Well, praise God. And once again, welcome to Apple Watch Cafe Session 1. And so what we would encourage you to do if you have not yet purchased an Apple Watch is to take a look at the Apple Store app on your iPhone or iPad, or you can go to store.apple.com. You can give them a call at 800-MY-APPLE, or you can even stop into an Apple store or a Best Buy or a Target or a Walmart or B&H, different stores that carry these things. And you can see what is available, have somebody explain to you what is available. And there are so many different watch bands, and then even the cases, there are, a couple of different options there. And so there's just so many combinations of things that we really feel it's a very personal preference kind of thing. So we're not going to spend a lot of time going in depth on that. But the information is out there, and if you do have any specific questions, we will be happy to answer them during the Q&A period. Now, I will touch briefly on the fact that there are three major models of Apple Watch currently: the Apple Watch Series 10, the Apple Watch SE. I believe that's still the second generation, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's the Apple Watch Ultra 2. So the Ultra 2 is really your rugged. I'm a hiker. I'm a deep sea diver. I'm a mountain climber. I go to Antarctica for, scientific research purposes. That's the kind of stuff that you do with an Apple Watch Ultra 2, because it's very rugged. It's got those extra features and things of that nature. Although there are people who just buy it because they like the extra battery life or the extra ruggedness, whatever, And then the flagship model is the Series 10. That's the one I'm currently wearing. That's what I own, praise God. And you can do a little bit of cost saving if you want the SE. Really what you're sacrificing in the SE is just some of the additional features like the larger screen, which does, have an impact on what you can do with VoiceOver as far as typing and stuff like that. We'll cover all of that. The Series 10 has a couple of extra health features, and we'll talk briefly about those when we discuss health type stuff. And there's a built-in speaker on all models, but it does weigh more on the Series 10 and Ultra than it does on the SE. You can actually listen to music right on the Apple Watch itself if you have a Series 10 or if you have an Ultra 2. These kinds of things. Now, some people ask, because they've read about it, well, what about blood oxygen? Well, Apple is working to try to get that restored. As of right now, it is disabled here in the United States due to an injunction, a patent issue that's, I guess, being still litigated and these kinds of things. So right now, we don't have that feature, but when and if it becomes available, it will come to the Series 10 and not the SE. It will come to the Ultra 2 as well. If you have a model of Apple Watch that you purchased prior to the injunction, it probably still works. But if you have a new Series 10 or something, you'll see the app. But if you open it up, it'll just say it's not currently available or something like that. So just, to brief you on some of those things and some of those differences there. And again, I said we're not going to talk bands and all that, but just in case anybody's curious, I will tell you which band I use. It is the Apple Watch Solo Loop, and that's one that you can actually, funnily enough, I've seen them available on discount sites like Woot sometimes. And I'm not really sure how they do it. I guess you just have to know your size and pick it, because they're very specific. When you order it from Apple, it actually asks you to measure your wrist. And So when you get it, then it's going to fit you just right. And I really do like that solo loop. Again, we're happy to answer questions about that later on if anybody has them, but just not going to go in depth about it. All right, what we are going to talk briefly about is the difference between the GPS Apple Watch and then the what's known as GPS Plus Cellular. If you are familiar with iPads, this is kind of similar to that with Apple Watch GPS and then Apple Watch GPS Plus Cellular. So if you have, first of all, let me say that every Apple Watch must be set up using an iPhone. You must have an iPhone to pair that Apple Watch to. And there are some cases where you can set it up for someone else, like a child, and there's special modes for that on some of them. But that's basically, you just want to think of it for most, all intents and purposes, one Apple Watch. You pair it to your iPhone, and you're good to go. And you do that using the Watch app, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. So you then get all your information from that iPhone. It's going to sync all of the things from your phone, your messages, your contacts, calendars. And anytime that a notification comes to your iPhone, it will come to your Apple Watch as well. And we will go into detail about notifications on the Apple Watch either today or on Monday. But what I want you to understand is that you really do use the iPhone as the home base for that Apple Watch, right? All Apple Watches are paired to an iPhone. However, if you get an Apple Watch with cellular capability and you decide you want to leave your iPhone behind, maybe go for a run, or you just, you forget your iPhone or something like that, the cellular capability in the Apple Watch will allow you to continue to perform functions that require an internet connection, or even to make and receive phone calls without you having to keep that iPhone in close proximity. Now, let's go into a little more specifics about this and the caveats and everything so that you understand and can make an informed decision if you need to. So with the GPS model, your iPhone essentially has to be close to your Apple Watch at all times if you want to use all of the functions of the watch. But now exactly how close that has to be is really the thing that may convince you that you still don't need cellular. Because, for example, when you are at home on Wi-Fi or anywhere else that you're on Wi-Fi, the Apple Watch is going to get that Wi-Fi information from your iPhone, and therefore it's going to connect to Wi-Fi. So technically, you could be at totally opposite ends of the house. Your Apple Watch still will work just fine because of your in-home Wi-Fi. If, however, you are out and about and you're not on Wi-Fi, then you're going to need to have your iPhone within Bluetooth range. And still, for most people, this is not a problem. You keep your iPhone in your pocket, in your purse, whatever the case may be. And so most times that's not an issue. And we kind of overthink that. To me, that's actually less like when I get an iPad, I always get them with cellular. And praise God, I've got two iPads. They both have cellular data on them because I want that freedom of having the cellular data right on the iPad, being able to use it anywhere. But the idea that I need it on my watch is a question mark for me because really and truly, my iPhone is always with me. And so even if I leave it in my pocket, it's still close enough that I can use the Apple Watch without having to have cellular. Now, having said that, I do currently have a model with cellular capability, praise God. And the reason for that is because I actually, well, it's God's favor. But the earthly part of that is that I actually got the Apple Watch at a significant discount by purchasing it through Xfinity Mobile. And of course, they do require you to have a data plan on it, at least until the watch is completely paid off. And I'll probably keep it. It's like $10 a month for the data plan. It's not a big deal. So that brings me to the second point, though. If you get a model that has cellular capability, if you actually want to use that cellular capability, you have to have a cellular plan. And these are typically like between $10 a month and, something close to that. You have to check with your specific carrier, but most of them, that's, what you can expect. And you don't have to put the data plan on your watch. Like I always say with the iPad, at least you have the option, because if you get the GPS only model, you cannot upgrade it to add cellular capability. If you get GPS plus cellular, you can choose to say, I just don't want to add cellular to this, right? Now, again, if you purchase it from a carrier, they're going to require cellular capability if you're doing a payment plan or something. But if you were to buy it directly from Apple, you can, just say, look, I'm never going to put cellular on this. I just wanted to have the capability, to have the option. So you have that choice. It's not that you're required to have a data plan. But if you want to use the cellular functionality of the watch so that you can make and receive calls and do internet stuff even without the phone being nearby, then you would have to add a data plan. And it does not need a separate phone number. Some carriers will assign a phone number to it, but that is strictly for accounting purposes so that it's easy to identify the line. Other carriers may just use a name, it might say Apple Watch or whatever you name it. But the phone number that people would actually use to contact you on the watch is your regular iPhone number, because it's going to ring your Apple Watch as well. And that's true with or without a cellular plan. The difference being it's got to be in close proximity if you don't have a cellular plan. So these are the kinds of differences between the GPS and then the GPS plus cellular. So I just wanted to go over that part of it because that may mean something to someone. Now, let's talk about the basic setup process. As I mentioned, you're going to need an iPhone, and you will want to have an iPhone that's, up to date. Always a good idea to be up on the latest version, right? And now that's 18.3, iOS 18.3. And so you're going to want to be up to date. You're going to want to have two-factor authentication enabled for your Apple account. You're going to want to have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth turned on your iPhone, and you're going to want to have you're going to want to be signed in to your Apple account, right? These are best practices no matter what. Those things that I mentioned, they're going to sound very familiar on a lot of devices. We said that same thing about the HomePod on Monday. Probably said that same thing about the Apple TV last week or the week before. I don't remember. But they're best practices. Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on, signed into an Apple account, yes. And two-factor authentication enabled for that Apple account, yes. Those are just standard things that ought to be the case really at all time. And people say, well, if I disable Bluetooth, it will save battery power. It's probably not going to save enough battery power to be worth the hassle, because you just never know what kinds of things might use Bluetooth even for just a moment. And the Apple Watch definitely needs it. The Apple Watch keeps paired with the iPhone over Bluetooth. So, it's just part of the nature of it, how it works. Okay, so now the Watch app. The Apple Watch app, just called Watch, comes pre-installed on your iPhone. And if you inadvertently deleted it or maybe intentionally deleted it, you can always go to the App Store and re-download it, put it back on your phone. I'm fairly certain of that. But it is the Watch app, and that is where we're going to start when we set up a new Apple Watch. And in fact, when you put your Apple Watch on your wrist, and we'll talk more about that in a moment, you will oftentimes it will prompt you on the iPhone, do you want to open the Apple Watch app so you can, get started. Now, the Apple Watch app is going to be the place where you pair the watch with your phone. It's also going to be the place where you choose your watch faces, because there's a ton of watch faces available, but they're not all pre-installed on the watch. Some of them are, a lot of them are not. A lot of them are in the face gallery in the watch app on your iPhone. And then what happens is, if you like one, you can download it to the watch, and you can have many downloaded to the watch, but nevertheless, you're not going to put all of them on there. Probably you just, pick the ones you really like, and then you can keep those on your watch and go back and forth, whatever. So we'll talk more about that here in a few minutes, but that's another component to the Watch app. And of course, the other component to the Watch app is your Apple Watch settings. There are many settings that you will be able to control right on the Apple Watch itself from the settings app, but the Watch app on your iPhone will typically have even more settings for the watch and for each of the apps on the watch, and it'll have more granular control. You'll be able to pick what apps get installed to the watch and all these kinds of things. All right, so the setup process first involves putting the watch on your wrist, and you will want to pick which wrist you're going to put that on. And if you're wearing it, typically what I would say is that you want to have it. I think maybe it's personal preference. I don't know, but I've always had it so that the buttons are facing like away from me, like they're closest to my hand rather than to my upper arm. And I use it on my left wrist. Now we have the watch face, which is the big, basically the screen, right? And then we have two buttons that we need to talk about. If you have an Ultra, you also have an action button. But if we, any other watch, we have two buttons. We have the round button, which is called the digital crown. So get used to that name, because when I say press the crown or press the digital crown, you'll know what that is. It's the round circle. It is a dial. You can rotate it, like a dial. You can also press it like a button. Okay. And that's called the digital crown. The other one is you almost have to use your fingernail if you really want to feel where it begins and ends. But it is the side button. We'll just call that the side button. It's the long button that is on your watch right beside the crown. All right. So in order to turn the watch on once it's on your wrist, you're going to press and hold that side button for probably 4 or 5 seconds and then release it. If you can see, you will see an Apple logo, and it takes a minute or two for the watch to fully boot up and be ready to go. And then you can, just like every other Apple product, you can turn VoiceOver on right out of the box if you so choose. And it's the same as everything else that Apple does, right? If you do it during setup, it'll make that the accessibility shortcut. So the accessibility shortcut on the watch is press the crown 3 times. That's how you do the accessibility shortcut. 3 presses of the digital crown, and it will make VoiceOver the default action for that accessibility shortcut if you do it during setup. If not, you'll have to go in and customize that. But this way you can have VoiceOver right out of the box. So you wait a minute or two. Again, just to review, you press and hold the side button, that long button, for about 4 or 5 seconds. Wait a minute or so, and then you can start trying to press the crown 3 times. It's that round circle. Press, 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 and it'll make a noise, and VoiceOver will turn on. And on your phone, if you didn't already receive a prompt to open the Apple Watch, you can manually open it, and it'll say good morning or good afternoon, whatever time of day it is, and there's a button there that'll say something like start pairing. And the option to pair by using holding the Apple Watch up to your camera and so on, that is available. But I can tell you that there are even sighted folks who struggle with that. So I would encourage you to choose the option that says pair manually, and you'll have that on both the watch and the phone. So when you start pairing, just double tap that on both devices, and what'll happen is the phone will say choose the Apple Watch you want to set up. Well, typically there's only going to be one that's there in the room, unless there's something you have several you're trying to set up, for different reasons. But there's one Apple Watch, and it'll just show you like Apple Watch. It'll have a number like, Apple Watch 8643 or whatever. It's just, and so you just choose that. And then it'll say enter the code. So what's going to happen is your Apple Watch is going to display a code. It will, VoiceOver can read that to you, and you can, enter that on the iPhone to continue. Now, in order to read it on the Apple Watch, you're going to use standard VoiceOver gestures. These are, anybody who's used an iPhone, it's the same left and right swipe, double tap, rotor. Now, to be very clear about what is left and right, and I don't know if there's any confusion about that, but what you want to imagine is holding your arm across your body. You don't really have to hold it in that position when you're using your watch, but I'm just trying to be helpful to you so you can understand the correct orientation. So you are holding your arm across your body. The watch is in front of your face. You take in my case, it's on my left wrist. So I take my right hand and I use my index finger, and I would swipe literally the direction of left to right across my body. Okay, so that hopefully is helpful. It feels very natural to me. I can't imagine doing it any other way. whichever you have it on. Just don't overthink it. Just literally left to right. I mean, it is the same as your standard voiceover gestures. All right, so now we're in the setup process. We've entered that code and we're paired. And then the next thing, there might be some questions. And, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember the exact sequence, but it's pretty much the common questions where you're, agreeing to the terms. You are accepting all the privacy stuff. Yeah, I think it's going to ask you if it's a brand new setup, which wrist it's on. And eventually it's going to start syncing from your phone all of the settings that it needs. Again, the calendars, the contacts, all of that stuff, the messages. And one of the things you can do if it's not your first watch is you can restore from a backup, just like any other Apple device, pretty much. Well, for the most part. And of course, Apple TV is a little different, but other than that. And so when you restore from a backup, just like you would on your iPhone or your iPad, it's going to have everything exactly the way that you had it before. But if it's your first time, of course, it's just going to ask you if you want to go ahead and install the compatible apps. And so we're going to talk about that in depth here after we finish with the setup process. And so the last stage of the setup process is just the configuring and syncing and so on. And it actually tells you can use your iPhone normally. You can leave the watch app and just keep doing whatever you want to do on your phone, and it will keep syncing in the background and it'll notify you when it's done. And then there's this little tour on your watch that you can take a tour of Watch OS and how to navigate and the buttons and that thing. It'll tell you, press the crown. And so you try that and it gives you a little noise to reward you and tell you you're going on. I forget if it's like 3 steps or 5 steps. It's just a short little introduction kind of tutorial to the watch. And eventually you are on the watch face. Now, the watch face is not to be confused with the home screen. And we're going to explain that right now. Because it is a watch, its default location is always going to be the clock face or the watch face. There is also a home screen where all of your apps are located. But again, common sense, because it's a watch, you're going to always default to the clock face. Now, I mentioned earlier that you can choose your watch face and you can use the face gallery in the watch app, and you can download watch faces to the actual watch, and then you can customize them on, I believe, either the phone or the watch, actually. And I'm going to talk about that now. We're going to spend some time on the watch faces before we ever get into the home screen and all the apps and notifications. And I have a feeling that's going to be Monday. Praise God. I don't want to rush this and get, too far ahead of ourselves. I want to spend some time on the watch faces because it is a watch. That's where you'll spend a lot of your time, right? Now, before we get started with this, I do want to say there are rotor actions, and one of the places where you will maybe use the rotor actions would be to customize your watch face. If you are on the time of when you tap on your watch and you hear the time, even if it's Mickey reading the time,
it's 2:36.
If you use the up or down swipe with one finger, you're using the rotor actions.
Control center.
You can hear control center.
Notification center.
Notification center.
Show widgets.
Show widgets, which we'll talk about.
Customize watch face.
And customize watch face.
Activate.
And then activate. But customize watch face is the one that you can double tap then to go into the options where you can choose a different face, or you can customize the existing one. And I think you swipe left and right to go between faces, and swipe up and down with one finger to choose to customize or to activate the particular face that you want. And again, you're going to be limited to whichever faces you have chosen to download to the watch. I couldn't even tell you at this point whether they ship several on the watch already, simply because I'm pretty sure I restored from a backup the last time, and I do remember going in even then and adding watch faces from the app. So again, one of the tabs at the bottom of the app is at the bottom of the watch app on the iPhone is the face gallery, and you can add well, maybe I'll show that to you because that you can hear real easily. Let me grab my phone here. And
messages, edit button.
Okay, that's easy to hear.
Files. Wolfram Alpha. Font. IT. Password. Voice. Translate. Watch.
There's the watch app.
Double tap to open. Watch. All watches. Button.
So if you would happen to have more than one watch set up and paired to your phone, you can hit all watches to view each of the watches that you have. I only have this one. I think I unpaired my old one. And so I'm in the sort of settings for the watch that I have. If I swipe to the right.
Matthew's Apple Watch. Heading. Search. Dictate my faces. Heading.
And the first thing in this first heading is the list of faces that I already have downloaded to the watch. So let's just listen to a few of those.
Edit faces. Button.
We can hit edit, but we're not going to.
Meridian. Black. Multicolor. 4 complications. Moon. Workout. Today's date. Rings. Metropolitan. IV. Blue fog. 4 complications. Moon. Temperature. Today's date. Wind. Playtime. Black. On. Double. Astronomy. Modern. Arabic. Western. Earth. Random. 2 artist. Mickey Mouse. Red. 3 complications. Today's date. Temperature. Your schedule.
Okay, so you can, and notice it says double tap to edit face. And so we can make the changes on our iPhone if we want to as well. But I want to go past these faces and keep swiping to the right to show you that then we're going to get into the actual watch settings. You don't have to go into something called settings on the phone. You just go into the watch app and all of the settings are there. Now, that's different from the watch itself where there is a settings app. But here,
liquid, fire and water, motion.
These are some really cool watch faces I have here, I gotta say.
Flowers,
I'll tell you about some of them later, but
info module smart
okay.
stack notifications button, smart stack button, app view, general, cellular, display and brightness, gestures, accessibility, Siri, sounds and haptics, passcode button.
Almost sounds in a lot of ways like our iPhone settings, right? Some of the same things and some other things. And so anything you want to customize about your watch, you can do that from the iPhone in the watch app. A lot of it can also be done from settings on the watch itself, but to some extent, there are more options on the phone. So as we progress through this class, or if you're, ever in a help session asking us about how to do something on the watch or something, if I say to you, go to accessibility in the watch app, you understand that that means on your phone and not on the watch itself. Now, what I originally came in here to show you was that across the bottom of this watch app are 3, I think maybe 4 tabs, but I think 3.
Tab bar, selected, My Watch, tab, 1 of 3, Face Gallery, tab, 2 of 3, Discover, tab, 3 of 3.
All right, so most of the time you're going to stay in the My Watch tab, but if you want to add watch faces to the watch itself, you need to go to the Face Gallery.
Face Gallery.
Now, what we have here...
Face Gallery, heading, New Watch Faces, heading, Photos. Swipe up or down to select a custom action, then double tap to activate.
And if we swipe up or down...
Cap P.
There are no custom...
Pop-up reflections. Cap R. Live recognition characters.
No, there are no custom actions.
Photos, reflections, flux, activity, heading.
And then there's a new heading for activity. I don't know what some of these are, so let's say I want to go into reflections.
Reflections.
Now,
Face Gallery, back button.
Back button at the upper left, just as we would expect. And let's swipe to the right to see what we can learn about reflections.
Share button.
We can share this watch face.
Reflections. Add button.
There's the button to add it to your watch. That's how it then becomes downloaded to your watch and part of the My Faces section, and part of the faces you can choose directly on the watch if you hit that add button. But let's go to the right and look at more of the options.
Description, heading. Referencing the materials used to make Apple Watch, this face features a metallic sunburst dial that reflects light in response to the movement of your wrist. Reflections is available in a range of colors and features 4 customizable complications. Color, jet black, heading.
Now, it says jet black, and that's the color of the watch I have.
Warm gray.
So you have these different colors.
Warm gray, cream, gray, gold, natural, slate, rose gold, silver, selected, jet black, topaz, sapphire.
And I suppose, I could be wrong, I suppose it has pre-selected jet black because it knows that's the color of my watch. But again, you could change that, and then there might be other,
Cap
if we
S.
go to headings,
Live toggle vert heading, dial, heading.
we can go down to the next heading and we can customize the dial.
Selected, rectangle, circle, complications, heading.
And then we get to the complications. So I'm going to explain to you now what complications are. So complications is a watch, or I guess a clock or watch face term. I don't believe that it was Apple that created the term complications. I think that is, a pre-existing term. And that's because even some of your other watches that have been in existence that are not smartwatches, they might have the date on them, or they might have the moon phase or something. And so these are known as complications. They're things other than the time that are available right on the face of the watch. And with Apple watch faces, you can have any one of a number of complications depending on the face. So certain faces may have no complications because the graphics of the face itself are enough to take up, the whole face. Others will have places for various complications, and maybe you can have, like that one, I think it said it supports up to 4, and there are some that maybe support 6 or 8. There's some that only support 1 or 2, and then exactly how they look is either customizable, or at the very least it's described to you when you're setting up this face. And so the kinds of things that you can have, there are tons and tons of choices for both the watch faces and for the complications that you put on them. So again, just like with what we said with the bands, not going to spend a lot of time on it, but I am going to go through some of these because this is more of a technology thing than just picking out a band style, right? So I'm going to go back to the face gallery, and I'm just going to use headings. And let's see. So I have, after the new faces section, we have activity. And so people that are interested in workouts and exercise and so forth might want an activity face. And under the activity heading, there are 3 different watch faces you can choose from. Activity analog, activity analog subdials. Oh, the first one says activity analog rings. The next one is activity subdials. And the third one says activity digital. So you have 2 analog ones and a digital one. The next category of watch face you have is artists, and that has, let's see, 2 things in it, I think. The next heading, just to give you a few more, I won't look at each of the watch faces in the headings this time, but I'll just give you a few more headings. Each one of them you can assume has at least 1 face in it, if not more, to choose from. So we have astronomy, we have breathe, we have California, we have Chronograph Pro, and color, and we just can go on and on and on. I mean, there's just so many categories of faces, and each will have a few in it. I really think that one of them is that there's a couple that I have in my already installed my faces section that I was pretty excited about. One is called liquid metal, and it actually makes the watch face look like it is like flowing liquid. And then there was fire and water. That's cool. You can pick one of those. There's several motion faces. You can have either a jellyfish or a butterfly or flowers, and you can actually see them moving. The Mickey Mouse one, he actually taps his foot to denote the seconds. Another one that some people might be interested in, my daughter really likes this, is they've recently added a Snoopy watch face. I don't know the whole ins and outs of it, but it in one way or another, Apple, I don't want to misspeak and represent it incorrectly, but I believe Apple basically now either owns the rights to or has licensed the rights to, the Peanuts franchise, because you can watch their Peanut specials on Apple TV Plus. There's also now a Snoopy watch face and a Snoopy screensaver for the Apple TV. And these are like animated, he's doing different things. Like on the Apple TV, we have the Snoopy screensaver, and different times, a lot of the times he's just sleeping, but then sometimes he'll go over to a bowl of food and do that, or he'll, do other play or do other things. So you can have that on your watch face too. So there are tons and tons of faces, first of all. Then within each face, there are times that you can choose the color of the face, and you can even choose sometimes the shape or style of the face. Like you heard in that one I looked at, the dial could be rectangular or it could be a circle. And some of them you can even choose the way that the complications look, whether they're in a circle or whether they're square. And you can have, some of them are analog versus digital. You can, choose those kinds of things. Some of them will have a second hand, so you can see the seconds. And of course, then you can choose the complications, which is the next thing I wanted to talk about. And the complications are what will allow the watch face to have more information and more functionality than just displaying the time. Now, before I go in depth about the complications, let me remind you that you still have a home screen with apps. So just because you don't have a particular complication on your watch does not mean that you cannot do a certain thing. It's just whether or not it's done right on the watch face versus whether or not you have to go into your home screen and open up a particular app to do it. So, complications. Some of the ones that I tend to like a lot are the current weather conditions. And I can display like the temperature, and it might say, it's mostly clear or it's rainy or whatever, and give me the temperature, or it'll give me the high and the low temperature for the day along with the current temperature. Another one I really like is the moon phase, because I just think that's cool to have on your watch, and it, will tell you what phase the moon is in. I like to have either the date or the up next, or both. And so that, the date is self-explanatory. The up next is like, I think they call it up next. It's like what is the next event on your calendar, right? And so you can have that. You can also do, one of the other ones I like is the wind speed, because that's not something you always see very easily. I sometimes like to see the UV, or you can put your, a lot of people that do that use the watch for fitness purposes, they'll put their activity goals on there, the rings. Most of you have heard of that, at least, where you have to close your rings each day for standing and for activity, and for exercise, and these kinds of things. So you can put those on the watch face as a complication, so you can easily check your rings. I mean, there's just tons and tons of them, and again, they're categorized. So when we start picking, like, let me go back to, I think I probably have. So, like, if I go into one of these and I don't have this one installed, I don't think I do. So I can go down here to, oh, that's interesting. You can even have like a tachometer. That's part of this chronograph Pro. But if I go to complications, then what I have is like, so right now, just listen to this.
Button, top left, UV index, button.
Okay, so the top left complication right now, unless I change it, is the UV index.
Top right, temperature, bottom left, timer, bottom right, rings, button.
So this one has a timer, the temperature, the UV index, and the rings. Now, if I want to change one of these, let's just double tap on rings.
Off alert, watch would like to access your home data. Read the state of HomeKit homes. Don't allow.
I'm going to say allow on that. Okay.
Switch off.
Now, the complication choices, I'm not going to go through every one of them, but just to show you.
Complications, heading, off.
You can pick off if you don't want a complication in that location.
Activity, heading.
Now, again, they're organized by heading. So if we look at activity, we're going to see all the possible activity-related complications we can have.
Selected, rings, alarms, heading.
Okay, there's only one under there. But then we go to the alarms heading.
Alarms. Astronomy.
And again, there's only one there, but it is the alarm. So if you want to see quickly when your next alarm is, you can have that as a complication. Here's the astronomy category.
Astronomy, moon, audiobooks, heading.
You can have an audiobook. Let me just look at the headings.
Battery, blood oxygen, heading, calculator, heading, calendar, camera, cellular, compass waypoints, contacts, heading.
I mean, there's just so many. And I was trying to find one that has more than one choice. And I think if I go to, and some of these are even third-party apps that have complications. Let's see if I, okay, Maps probably has more than one. Yeah, it does. The Maps heading, so you can have
Maps, get directions.
You can have a get directions complication, and I imagine that's smart, I would guess, whereas it probably shows you your next event. You want to get directions to the next place you're going or back home or whatever. And then
Nearby transit.
nearby transit.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So some of these have more than one complication in the category. A lot of them don't. But these are all kinds of things that you can put on your actual watch face itself so that you can quickly view that information and possibly double tap it to interact with it to get more information, and it will open the related app.
Energy.
So if I go back
Chronograph Pro.
in my watch app
Face gallery.
on the phone,
Button.
and I can show you now that the ones that I've already installed on the watch, I can do that same thing on the watch itself. So if I wake up my watch by raising my wrist or by touching the screen, and by the way, it's an always-on display. If you can see, you can even see the time very dimly without raising your wrist. But then when we talk on Monday, we're going to describe to you that you can have different ways of, like, you can set it to speak every time you raise your wrist, or only speak when you tap on it, or, you know, there's different choices too for voiceover users, but that's going to come on Monday. But if I tap on my watch, it will.
It's 2:54.
Okay. And again, the complications on the Mickey Mouse are
42 degrees high, 42 low, 30.
So it's 42 degrees.
Swipe up or down to select.
And that's my temperature complication.
Walkie-talkie. Status bar item.
There's a status bar there.
Wednesday, January 29th.
It has the date.
It's 5:30 p.m. Take my pill.
There's a next event, which I don't even use that one, that reminder, but it was on there. And that's it. So there's not very many complications on this, but if I want to customize the watch face, I can either do a double tap and hold on the time, or I can use that rotor.
It's 2:55.
Let's use the long press and see what that does.
Mickey Mouse, customizable. 3 complications. Today's date, temperature, your schedule.
And again,
An analog face featuring Mickey Mouse. Mickey points his hands to the hour and minute and taps his foot every second. Double tap to choose face. Swipe up or down to select a custom action. Screen dim. Tap to activate.
And if we swipe right,
liquid metal, fire and water, motion, customizable. Motion.
So all these different faces that I have, and you already heard it say, or hopefully you heard it say, if we double tap it, we'll choose the face, and we can swipe up or down to customize the face. And then what's going to happen is you're gonna get into these different options, like color, for example. And then you can either swipe up or down with one finger to choose the option, or you can use the dial, the digital crown. One of the nice things about the digital crown on the watch is it's a quick way to scroll. So whenever you get into a long list, you can, instead of having to use your swipe to the right or swipe up and down gesture, if you want to go more quickly, you can turn the crown. And the faster you turn it, the more it's going to go. You know, it's going to go very quickly from A to Z that way. And sometimes that crown is used to adjust volume. Sometimes it's used to, you know, but if it's in a list, it's going to scroll through that list. So what we are doing here is we're choosing the watch face and choosing the complications that are on that watch face. And so this is pretty fundamental. I know it may sound like it's, you know, a more advanced thing. Why are we doing this on day one? But we're doing it on day one because it is first and foremost a watch. And you want to find the watch face that is right for you, that displays the information you want most often to see. The apps and stuff, we're going to cover those on Monday, and we have to spend some time on notifications and things of that nature. But honestly, that's the easy part, because it's very similar to what we do with VoiceOver on the iPhone. There are some things to learn, and we will, but this watch face thing is where it really gets exciting, and you can, you know, make this your own by doing that. So then, you know, another option you have is having multiple watch faces, each with its own set of complications, so that when you want to switch to another one, it's already ready to go with the complications you like. And so you have that option as well. Now, another thing we can do from the watch face, and you heard this in the rotor options, if you touch the time and then you swipe up or down with one finger, we have Control Center. And I do want to talk about that a little bit. Let's see if we can hear it.
111 BPM Control Center. Controls alert. iPhone connected.
Okay, so I double tapped on Control Center after I swiped up or down. And these are the kinds of things you have in Control Center. You have, first it tells us that it's connected to my iPhone. It also, I won't make you try to listen to it there with voiceover, but I'll just tell you, it says iPhone connected, walkie-talkie available, and then if I swiped, oh, it says do not disturb is on. Accessibility, it just says that because I guess because I'm using voiceover, but do not disturb is on because I'm in a Zoom. If we go to the right, there's a toggle switch for cellular data. That's on. Wi-Fi toggle switch. There's a ping iPhone button, which if you double tap that, helps you to find your nearby iPhone. Maybe I don't know where I put my iPhone, so I double tap on this ping iPhone button, and you can hear that and now it's tapping me on the wrist. I'm moving closer to my phone,
Alert. 2:58
and it tells
PM.
me that I've
Switch button on. iPhone
that I
connected.
that I found my iPhone. It actually led me to my iPhone by tapping me on the wrist as I moved closer to my phone. So that's the ping iPhone button. Then we have the battery status.
85% battery power button.
Okay, 85% battery power. I have silent mode and theater mode. I'll describe those. We have the focus, which is on. It's do not disturb. There's a flashlight right on your wrist here. You can make the watch flash. You can turn on a flashlight. We have airplane mode. We have AirPlay and volume and hearing devices. There's a lot of options here. The other one I'm going to talk about is water lock. So I want to talk about silent versus theater, and I want to talk about water lock. So silent mode is exactly what it's typically expected to be, right? It just makes your watch silent, no sounds, no, whatever. But it's not the same thing as do not disturb, obviously, and you understand that difference. But then there's another option, theater mode. And what this also does is it keeps the screen dimmed unless you tap on it, and it keeps it quiet as well. So there's a combination of things you can do if you're actually in a place where it needs to be quiet. You can turn on theater mode, you can turn on silent mode, and you can put on a focus to really, really make things quiet. And it does sync by default. So like I did not explicitly turn the do not disturb focus on my watch before we started, but because I have that focus set to turn on when I open Zoom, then it also turned on my watch. And so that's the different silencing options there. And then the water lock. I wanted to talk about that. These watches are waterproof. They are designed for being able to be used in the shower, in the swimming pool, in the bathtub. And in fact, they even have a depth gauge on them now, the Series 10 and the Ultra. I don't know if it came to the SE or not, but there's a depth meter. You can measure how deep the water is. And there's basically this is fully usable in the water. But what does tend to happen with touchscreens is that the water will cause unnecessary and unwanted things to happen because the water will touch the screen and it'll be like you're tapping on it. So they have the water lock option. And so what the real idea is, and people use this in different ways, but what you're really supposed to do is turn on the water lock before you put your wrist in the water. And in some cases, again, if you're trying to measure depth or something, that may not make sense. But in general, if you're going to, go in the pool for a while or something, you turn the water lock on. And then when you are finished in the pool or whatever it is you're doing, you turn the water lock off by pressing and holding the digital crown. So as long as that water lock is on, you're not really going to be able to use your watch. The screen is locked. But when you're ready to use it again, you press and hold the digital crown, and it turns off the water lock, but it also ejects water from the speaker so you don't have a blurry, distorted kind of sound. And the way that it ejects water is it actually plays a tone at a certain frequency that will cause water to be ejected from the device. And I can demonstrate that to you. I think
It's
you'll be able to.
funny. It
Yeah.
does sound like the water is trickling out.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we can demonstrate it here that you can hear it. So,
Focus, flash, airplane, water lock, switch.
okay, so we'll turn on water lock.
On. UV1.
Now if I start
Available.
if I start touching the watch, nothing's happening, right? No activity when I touch the screen. But I'm going to press and hold the crown, see if you can hear this. And by the way, if I just press it, it's going to tell me.
Press and hold crown to turn off water lock.
Okay, so we're going to press and hold it.
Keep holding. Unlocked. Ejecting water.
Okay, so I don't know how much of that you heard, but it did do it. That's the water lock. So there's some really useful stuff in the control center. We also have a notification center, just like you would on your other Apple devices, but I'm not going to get into that until Monday because we need to spend some time understanding the difference between mirrored notifications from your iPhone and the notifications that are generated by apps on your watch. We need to understand how to choose. Like, there are certain notifications that I don't want coming to my watch because I really want them on the phone. They make a certain sound that I am used to or something like that. So we are going to deal with that on Monday. But the other thing I will show you is that when you have your watch face displayed, you can also, and I ended up with a different watch face. What do I even have? When I did this demo a few minutes ago, I got that chronograph one. Yeah, I really don't want that one because that's not what I want. I'll go back to Mickey. Okay. So anyhow, when you have your watch face displayed, if you turn the crown away from you, it brings up the widgets. And these are the kinds of things we have. We have our schedule, calendar. We have photos, featured photos. We have wind speed, current conditions. There's a music widget, a workout widget. And then there's even a button at the very end that says all apps. Tells me I have no unread messages. So what this essentially compares to is if you go, and maybe people aren't even aware that you can still do this, but if you go to page 1 on your iPhone and go one more time to the right, 3 fingers to the right, you go to what they call page 0, which is the today view, and it has like a whole bunch of widgets there. Well, that's kind of what this widget view is on the watch. And so, again, it's another quick way of interacting with even more of the apps and getting even more information on your Apple Watch without ever having to go yet to we still haven't even gone to the home screen. And I will just sort of, before we go to questions and so on, I will just sort of bring today to a close by saying that if you want to go to the home screen and start playing with your apps before Monday, when you're on the watch face, all you got to do is press the crown.
Apps, activity.
And it says apps, and it lists the first one here, activity. And you can swipe to the right through your apps.
Alarms, Amber, American, App Store, Apple Store, audiobooks, blood oxygen, calculator.
And we just can keep going, double tap anything we want, or press the crown again.
Watch face.
3:06.
To be taken back to the watch face. And then, of course, if you don't do anything and you just let the watch sit, it eventually will go back to the watch face as well. And that's a setting. Thanks, everybody, and have a great weekend. God bless you all. And remember, we will be back on Monday at the same time, same link. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for joining today's session. Didn't get your question answered? Have an additional comment or feedback? Email us info@ttjtech.biz or info@stirritup.com. And remember, stir is spelled with a U. That's STURITUP.com. Or check out our websites for additional resources. That's ttjtech.biz or stirritup.com. And remember, subscribe to the newsletter when you're there. That way, you don't miss out on any upcoming announcements or events. Thanks for joining us. God bless, and see you next time.